Hello. No, it's still morning. It's still morning. Oh, let me turn that music off. I still had the music blasting. What am I doing? Hi there. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from Key Largo. Talking over the music and all shit like that. Well, I had a listener and remind me that, hey, what's going on? Why are you? It's Friday and you only have one episode out. Well, you know, every so often, even these shows take a couple weeks off. I wasn't. I had a very busy week with my other crap going on. But then I really do have time. I'm just a lazy ass by nature. You know, going into work. I don't know. I tell people I have 3-4 different jobs, and they think I'm very ambitious, but for some reason I realize I'm much more prone to inertia than anything else. And I had planned, it was Thursday, and I said I could do 2 shows on Thursday. I'll get all caught up. I'll get my 3 shows done. Well, what happened? Wednesday night, I went to bed. I woke up at 3:30 and couldn't go back to sleep. And that was 4 hours of sleep. I remember a day when I was in college and I'd have a paper due at the end of term exams came up and final exams and shit like that, and I had to pull all-nighters, stay up and do papers and stuff like that. Sometimes no sleep or 1 hour sleep, 2 hours sleep. I've done that when I was working, where I walk around with two hours sleep at most. And it wasn't optimum, but I could function. And after an hour or two, after being awake, I thought I was pretty good. But holy crap, and I don't mean to put no aspersions to dog, but I felt like dog shit yesterday. And it was palpable. You could see it in me. I felt it yesterday when I actually went to the gym, and yesterday was my day off. I did very little yesterday. I just felt horrible. Just drawn out. Like that Stretch Armstrong, just all the way out. And crap. And I didn't until, I think I had a little nap. I know, nap. That's an old man thing. I know. I need a nap. I took a nap today, too. I slept great last night and did that. I'm coming out of it. I'm going to do a little experiment. Right now, this is me without coffee. It's 12 o'clock. I'm going to drink a little coffee. I'm going to see if you notice a difference. I had some coffee around 6:30, 7 o'clock. I think my last cup was at 7:15. So that's almost 5 hours. And looking at the clock, it's noon right now. I just made a fresh pot. I'm going to see what happens. And you're going to hear it. But it is interesting. I'm 57 years old. If I get 5 hours, I'm okay. If I get less than 5 hours, I am horrible. I am useless. I'm lethargic. And sometimes I'm talking to people. I wonder why they're a certain way. And I'm thinking maybe they don't get enough sleep. It's their state of being. I don't sleep. I hear people, I don't sleep more than 4 or 5 hours a night. I said, that's horrible. That's horrible. I think I would probably not last 6 months. I really need that downtime to, rejuvenate. And I'm not just talking about the circadian rhythms and going to REM sleep, REM sleep, doing that download thing where you do when you go to sleep and you have your dreams and your brain kind of rejuvenates. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe some people that don't have a lot of things going on, don't really have a lot of sensory items going into their brain, don't need that much sleep. And I'm not insulting them. I'm not calling them stupid or anything like that. They may have that going on. But some people with overactive brains. That an overactive brain doesn't mean you're super intelligent. There's machines that work efficiently and work easily, and there's machines that work hard, use a lot of fuel, but aren't really efficient. And we all know vehicles like that. Vehicles that there was old 4-cylinder engines. You used to get like 20 miles to a gallon. That's not very efficient, is it? So, energy and rest the rest is the maintenance that you do, your body repairs and stuff like that. So, yeah, after a day, I felt great today. And I was aware, and I'm aware of it when I'm hungry. I'm more acutely aware when I'm hungry, when I haven't eaten. I need a certain amount of protein, fat, carbohydrates, just to keep going. I know it sounds crazy. I know I don't like to do too many over-the-counter things. A little testosterone enhancement. Maybe something that helps me not pee at night. That's more of a natural. There's natural herb supplements that you could do that help you drain your bladder before you go to sleep, so you don't get up as often. Just all sorts of things. Well, I'm going to pause this now. I'm going to go and get my cup of coffee. Or maybe I'll just leave it on while I'm getting my cup of coffee. You tell me. I'm going to talk a little louder. I'm in an empty room, so I'll move it towards me. You're going to hear a little echo, but I'm going to get up and pour myself a cup of coffee and just get started on this experiment. So right now, people say, hey, Jim, you sound pretty aware right now, but maybe it won't be apparent in my demeanor or the speed of my diction. It will be apparent to me, though. I'm feeling pretty good, but I want to be a little more alert right now, so I'm going to try that. I'm getting up right now. Okay, I got my Cuisinart coffee maker, my Snap-on Tools coffee mug. It's one of those travel mugs that you seal up. The coffee stays hot. I'm big on hot coffee. I'll drink. Hey, listen, when I really want coffee, I will drink it cold. I'll drink it cold and old. Like syrup. Here we go. Put a little creamer in it. I like that dry shit for some reason. I always use a dry creamer because I don't like dropping the temperature of my coffee. I don't know. But I haven't done that experiment. But you don't have to keep it cold. It's not like creamer. You keep it in, it doesn't. And then I put like a quarter teaspoon of sugar. Here we go. Oh boy, that's the ticket. On a side note, recently, it's been 12, when I moved down here to Florida, I became more cognizant to what I pay for when I go to the supermarket, how much money I outlay. And I notice every so often, the coffee would go on sale. Like 1 week out of the month. Or it won't be on sale for 2 months. So what I did, and I always had coffee when I lived by myself, and I'm going to talk about that 4-cup, people having to have a single cup coffee maker. I don't understand that fucking shit. But I would buy regular, well-known, like Maxwell House coffee. They'd come up, there's little bricks, because I don't want to buy the cans of coffee because I want it to be ecologically sustainable. So I buy those vacuum-packed blocks, and I save one container, and I use that container over and over again, when I open up the block, dumping coffee in there. So they sell them for 2 for $1 every so often. So I would go in there and buy 4, 6, and make sure I always had like 6, a backlog of 6 of them or more while it's on sale. And then if it's on sale frequently, I'll build that stockpile up to maybe 6 or 8. Right? Then if there was a shortage, it's supposedly that stuff stays fresh for over a year. And now with being with Abby, and now the little one, who's 14, going to be 15, she started drinking coffee, not like we do. She has a mix, so she has at most maybe a half a cup in the morning. I would have like 10, 12 bricks of coffee in my, and it's probably, some of you probably have it more than I do. And then whenever the price of coffee go up, you'd always see that, we wouldn't have to buy coffee at that time. Well, after a while, we started noticing when you go out that even if it was Maxwell House, the coffee is okay, but you notice the other coffees you get at Starbucks and stuff would be so much better. So we started buying Starbucks. And this other one was called Major Pete's or Major Dickinson. It was called Pete, P-E-E-T. A free commercial for them, let's say. And this is a New England brand coffee, just high-end coffee. And it $8, $9 for 12-ounce brick of coffee. It's still cheaper than going to a fancy, if people get up in the morning and they go to their gas station and buy a cup of coffee. It could have been sitting around for 3-4 hours. It tastes like fucking mud. And you can make yourself a great cup of coffee, cleaning your filters, making sure your filters are clean and stuff like that. You can have a great cup of coffee every time. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Is it that? No, I can't. I can tell my speech pick up. It's not that hard to make one cup of coffee. I don't understand a single cup coffee makers. Because it has a setting on almost every coffee maker that says 1 to 4 when you only make 1 to 4 cups. You know what? And 2 cups of coffee is not 2 cups of coffee. It's 1 cup of coffee. It's those tiny teacups of coffee. Maybe I drink too much fucking coffee. Well, I made a little over 4, so I didn't have to hit the 1 to 4 setting. There's a setting on your coffee maker. If you buy something that costs more than $30, $40, there's a setting on everyone's coffee maker that says 1 to 4 cups. And that's, I don't know what it does, but it must make the coffee extra hot, or makes it sure it drops right in the middle, or something that utilizes most of the grinds, because I guess it's a different process when you have the way it drips, these drip coffee makers make when you make like 10 to 12 cups. So that's enough about me. But it has, over the past 2 years, we stopped buying regular coffee, the good coffee, and we started buying great coffee. And even then, they go on sale every so often, so we buy extra. Now, the coffee's a little more, but I don't buy coffee out that much. So if I buy, the difference is buying around, let's say, 1 to 2 cups of coffee out a week. I've gone to restaurants and had some crappy cup of coffee. In the movie Elf, Will Ferrell's walking by a diner in New York, and out front it says the world's best cup of coffee. Now that's an objective statement. Say the best cup of coffee. And even the best cup of coffee is an objective decision. For the longest time, I loved instant coffee. I would take that over brewed coffee anytime. There was something about it, the taste of it. It didn't taste like regular coffee. Because when you make it instant, I guess they're just taking the residue of coffee, freeze drying it. So it would just, it would just melt in water. Because it's not grinds anymore, because grinds are gone. So I don't even know the process of it. And over in Europe, they do that a lot. A lot of people just, because I guess coffee, they're tea drinkers too. But here I am. I'm drinking some of this coffee. I'm going to have another sip. I can tell that's either the Starbucks. We usually have 3 different types of coffee. Either Starbucks or this Pete coffee. The brand's called Major Dickinson's. Yeah. Major Dick in the rear. No. But it's $9. But you can get, 120 cups out of it? And what's 120? It's 15 cents a cup of coffee. And why would you not? And why would you not get something that's great? An old cup of great coffee is better than a new cup of bad coffee. That's the way I look at it. Because I just turn it off. But that's enough about fucking coffee. And that coffee didn't do anything for me yesterday. When I'm feeling like that, coffee just my body's lethargic, and I'm just dragging my ass around. So perhaps it's not optimum, but I was functional. And after 4 hours, I mean, even then, you figure throughout the day, when I was younger, I get tired, and throughout the day I'd feel better. I didn't feel any better until I got my nap. Let's start talking about the vaccine rollout. I know. Hey, Jim, he's bartender. Why do you keep on talking about this shit? Well, this is the stuff we talk about in bar. We talk about almost everything except making drinks sometimes. I'll talk about drinks sometimes. I'll talk about drinks for a moment. I have people that come in. I'm going to just insert this in here just so make you feel comfortable. But I had someone come in and wanted a coconut martini. I didn't have any coconut vodka or anything like that, but I said I'd give it a go. And I always say, hey, do you have a coconut? People go, do you have a coconut martini? And I said, oh, sure. No, sure I don't. I don't have that. You like pomegranate martini? Do you like a pomegranate martini? We don't have that either. No, but what we did have, it's Coco Lopez. Coco Lopez is the mix you use with pineapple when you blend it together with pineapple. It makes the pina colada mix. It's half Coco Lopez and half pineapple, and it's great. And what we do at our bars when we make pina coladas, we use the raw Coco Lopez and pineapple. A lot of other places will make the blend it together and then pour it in with rum and just do it there. Yeah, that'll work fine in a pinch and stuff like that. It just works a little better when you blend it right before you make it. So what I did that day of, I'm thinking, what do I need to put in there? She didn't say coconut pineapple martini, which I did have pineapple vodka, which probably would have worked pretty good. But that would be a pina colada martini. I could use pineapple vodka and a little. I just realized something while I was talking. But what I did is I took vanilla vodka, a good vanilla vodka, and put a touch of Coco Lopez in the shaker, and I shook it together. And technically, that isn't a martini. A martini for me is either vodka or gin. And why not rum? Why aren't there rum martinis? Why did vodka get invited to the party, not rum? Now, whiskey kind of did with the Manhattan, but they don't call it a whiskey martini. It's only gin and vodka. That's kind of a fucking exclusive club. But what happened? I made the vanilla and the Coco Lopez. The person liked it. And then a week or so later, I had another order for it, and I go, what the hell? Another coconut martini. And they said, you made it for her before, and they asked you to make it exactly the same way. Now, there's a danger right there. From day to day, when you're making something up for somebody, if you don't write it down, I don't write down anything. I just do it. I don't write down. But it's hard to make it exactly. But I seem to remember I used vanilla vodka and Coco Lopez, which isn't that hard. Now, whenever you got like 4 or 5 mixes in it, when I make something up, that's the thing. I say, listen, if I mix it up with 4 or 5 different liquors and maybe liqueurs and 1 juice and maybe a bitter or something, it may, but that's the nature of it. I'll just say, listen, this is a one-time only. Not that I won't make it for you again. I may not be able to make it for you again because I can't remember. Okay? And I guess it does blend in well with the vaccine rollout thing. I'm going to do a real short history lesson. In 1955, Jonas Salk came about the discovery of the polio vaccine, or it's when they started using the polio vaccine. And polio was known about for years. It affected the spinal cord, and a lot of people died or became paralyzed with polio. Famously, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And when he was an adult, came down with polio and lost the use of his legs. So polio was, the vaccine was rolled out, and even at one point, there was a batch of polio vaccines made in California which were tainted, where 30 or 40 people died, and a couple hundred people were paralyzed. Yeah, that's pretty big, huh? They're making a big deal about people like getting one or two people getting out of 20 million getting the Johnson and Johnson, getting the blood clots. But and they kept on doing a polio vaccine after some, but you got to remember, polio was raging through countries, and it was taken for granted that pre-World War II, you'd get a lot of countries. Smallpox was the 1700s. They came out with a vaccination where they used small amounts of infected areas. If you ever watched the HBO miniseries John Adams, Abigail Adams had all her kids vaccinated, and one of her daughters came down after being vaccinated. They came down with it, and she had marks and everything from it. But whenever there was an outbreak of smallpox, the more educated people had their children inoculated because they didn't want them to get accidentally sick. And there was reasoning for it. It says a little of it. Now with vaccines, they use inactive viruses or whatever to initiate an immune response and create immunity for it. So I'm not going to get much into science, but polio was eradicated in the United States. The last case was 1979, and that's 24 years later. In our hemisphere, it was 1991. In the Western Hemisphere. Now, polio was still raging for years and years in Africa, and there was always an anti-vaccine movement in Africa and less developed countries. But it's just I hesitate to call it. It's not being informed. And, other ways to call it ignorance. But people would say not to, there was a hesitancy to it. But there hasn't been, there wasn't seen as a hesitancy was prior to when they had vaccine rollouts with the flu back in the early 1900s, like the Spanish flu, Spanish influenza, which was kind of a ethnic decentralized hatred, because Spanish flu really came about because of Westerners, Westerners there, yeah, Europeans and stuff like that. But I think it may have developed more. It may have came about in the United States. I don't know why you call it Spanish flu. Probably because they noticed the Spanish flu. So we've had people hesitant to that, but there were more evangelicals. And they always say, vaccine was against God's will. A plague was seen as a righteous response to evil in the world. That's where the evangelicals back in the early 20th century, that's 1900s for you, decided not to. And then the movement in the late 90s, and then you had an anti-vaccine movement come about that saying that autism was the byproduct of vaccinations in children and stuff like that. No one thinks of all the harmful other chemicals that we put in our body, all the shit we eat and drink. I for one ate a ton of crap. And it just happens every so often. But, to tie it to vaccine, it's easier to investigate single factors then multiple factors. But there's so much. There was DDT, there was pesticides, there's all these byproducts we use in our fuels and aerosols and cleaning products. So you never know what exactly unless you recreate the whole thing. But I'm getting far from the vaccine. The vaccination hesitancy was primarily people that were ill-informed in the 1900s, but primarily, other than that, was evangelicals. And now with the large ones, you have an anti-vaccine movement, and because of social media and the spread of alternative media, meaning people get their information from Facebook, Instagram. I mean, I was going to say message boards, but message boards were pretty much done by 2000, right? So we got all these people, and it seems like certain people, you can find out that you can see that certain people that follow certain news. And it's true, and they know it, that the followers of the former occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue are 44% less likely, or 44% say they are unlikely to get the vaccine. And they don't want to, and because they don't get it, which I understand. Now, this is what I understand from them. I understand that if you don't want to get the vaccine, that you don't want there to be a preference for people to get the vaccine to be able to travel, stay in hotels, get on planes, rent cars, go to big public events, sporting events, entertainment venues and things like that. They don't want that. And that makes total sense to someone that thinks vaccines are horrible. Now, for someone who believes that the vaccine stops the illness in its tracks and reduces the amount of total deaths and the effects of it, they're like, no, the reason why they have it is if you feel you have to go to those and you don't have it, then you're not protecting yourself. What if some people believe that you should be able, let's say guns weren't around. Let's say swords were the thing where people had. There were no firearms. And they said, well, you can't go with swords to a sporting event. Because people get angry, and when they get angry, when their team's not doing well, they have a tendency to start waving their swords around and start fighting. I didn't go with guns because it's stupid. Why would you want people to come in with guns? I'm sure there's people that say, I want to be able to bring my gun to a sporting event, which I disagree with that because some people just can't handle it. Okay? It's people. People kill people, not guns kill people. Well, people with guns kill people easier. So that is a decision they made. And they make the same thing with guns, and they say not to bring certain things with you on planes. No one complains about the plane. I mean, every so often there's an idiot tries to get on a plane with their handgun, even though they're going through a metal detector, an X-ray machine. Good coffee. But they handle that, but they can't handle vaccine. I guess, is it, I mean, I understand the science thing, but there's a charter school, a private school. It's a private school, not a charter school, because it doesn't accept people from the public. You have to be accepted in the school in Miami that decided to, it said it would not allow teachers to teach at the school if they got vaccinated. And it became national news. And here's the Center of Education. It costs upwards of $30,000 a year to send your kid there. And even though the parents believe in that, a lot of parents support the decision by the school to make that decision, that there was a big uproar about it. I mean, what is it about charter schools and private schools that make them more prone to people to believe those things? And I thought about that. And you know what? I don't have to be an expert. I always have these things that people come and say, you're just a bartender. You're just a bartender. Well, show me the credentials of Plato, Socrates, Aristophanes. They didn't go to college. They listened to other people. A philosopher doesn't have, some of them, Euclid and all that. They did experiments. But most of the things they said weren't experiential. They weren't experimental. They were just thought experiments. Plato's cave, when he talks about people not life or reality being similar to people who live in a cave with a fire at the entrance of the cave, right? Or outside the cave. And what people see on the inside of the cave, the wall of the cave, is shadows of the things that are happening outside. But they don't know the whole picture. So reality's that way. And it's pretty much well accepted that people say these guys knew what they were talking about. So if you're talking about philosophy, call it philosophy. There's science and there's philosophy. So you had the great thinkers, and then you had the great scientists. And that would be people like Newton, Einstein, Mendel, right? The guy that came up with gene theory and all that. Or Lister with bacteria. Or Fleming with antibiotics. There's science and there's philosophy. And what people are practicing out there are philosophy. Philosophy is saying, I don't want to put anything in my body unless I know the outcome years from now. And it is a philosophy. You can follow it. It's more like a religion. Now, seatbelts. Every so often when you wear a seatbelt can cause your death. Could cause you to be locked in to a place. But most of the time, in a severe accident or moderate accident, it'll save you from severe injury or death. Are they getting rid of seatbelts? No. No. It's just the way it is. It's a law of numbers. And if millions and millions of people, and if we did unchecked the COVID-19, no one knows how many people would have died. We know how many people died now. And that's with some of the safety protocols that we put in place. Now, some countries were much more successful. Now, if it's funny because if you believe those safety protocols don't do anything to protect you, then what you're saying about the countries that were able to control it more is that those countries' people are more, they're healthier and more resistant. They're superior to you. Okay? And you might think you're superior. You may think you're superior enough you can just throw it off. But I've seen a lot of these people at those rallies and stuff like that. And health-wise, I would not trade my health for their health. I would be, if I did not take care of myself, I would be a lot worse off than I am. I probably have a significant underlying issues that if I didn't do the things I do to keep myself healthy, I would definitely have major problems. But in the long run, the vaccine will have reduced the death by a large magnitude, just like polio did. The polio vaccine did. And it was eradicated here in the United States. I think the last case was in 2009. I mean, you get people visiting from other countries stuff. You could still have polio pop up every so often, but it's not a widespread thing. So maybe, I hate this. I hate the idea that people have the decision and control of their children when it comes to bad ideas. Like, oh yeah, beating a child is not a bad idea, right? Is that what they say? Beating an idea is corporal punishment. There's a lot of people out there say corporal punishment is in, and it's totally fine. I think it makes a brutal person. Not giving your kids vaccine or medicine. There's religious beliefs that are medical, no vaccines and things like that. And if you believe that, that's fine. But if it puts other kids in harm's way, then your kid has to be homeschooled. You're not allowed to work for a certain. You're not allowed to work around kids. You're not allowed to be a coach. You're not allowed to do a whole bunch of things. You shouldn't be allowed to. If there's something coming around, and a lion's share of the people in society, let's say 75% agree on it, and 25% listen. Maybe we do have to set up a separate country for these people. Maybe they do. It's funny because a lot of these people, the former supporters of the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, a lot of them are white nationalists, supremacists. They think they may have a black friend, they say. And, they used to say, well, we can give them their, originally when slavery was, there were people out there that were full endorsers of slavery, and there are other ones saying, slavery's wrong, but we can't keep them here. We got to send them back. Now, you forcibly took them out of their continent. They don't know where the hell they came from anymore, and then you're going to send them back to a country they have no idea, and just send them back. That's like bullshit. That's like kidnapping someone, when they were kidnapping a 1-year-old or an infant from a hospital in Boston, and when they get up to be 18 years old and say, I'm going to take them, I don't want them anymore, dropping them off in Seattle and fend for themselves. You didn't teach them anything either. It's stupid. I mean, obviously that analogy doesn't work really good when you say, well, you just keep them the rest of your life. No, you got to tell them that if someone was kidnapped their whole life and raised to adulthood, kidnapped, and then they were freed, what would the right thing to be, the way to treat that person? Well, the right thing would be to provide them education, a means of earning a living, right? Not throw them out on the street. Okay? People say, well, they were happy. They would have been happy to stay slaves. No. They won't. It wasn't their decision. Giving someone an opportunity to say, listen, you can stay where you are, and it could be a horrible, or you can come over here. That's indentured servitude, and they've done that. People voluntarily signed up for indentured servitude. But no, slavery is not the case. We'll talk about that some other time. And we'll talk about what competition you're afraid of. Why are you afraid of competing against other people? There used to be a Negro League baseball, and the white players and owners and people were reticent to have them. And I think it boiled down to they didn't want the competition. They were afraid of competition. And if you're a fucking capitalist in the United States, you talk about the capitalism all the time, then you should not be afraid of that. Just like kids going to Harvard. If every kid got the same education, are you afraid your kids are too stupid? That they couldn't compete against brown and black kids? I mean, a true competitor, a true capitalist would say, let the marketplace decide. The marketplace of humans. And the cream will rise to the top. And the same thing goes for scientific theory and stuff like that. So your dog shit theories, I used dog shit twice, or now it's 3 times. those theories will last a certain time. A lie can spread like wildfire, and truth could languish, but it eventually will come around. Lies can spread. I've heard rumors inside bars and different communities and societies and stuff like that, but in the end, the truth comes out. And people even always say that, well, the history book is written by the victors. Well, historians come and kind of figure that out too, you know? Rome was victors for the longest time, but then they realized there was a lot of Romans that were assholes, and the Greeks too, and the Macedonians, the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, the Incans, the Aztecs. They're all, I mean, you can say all these wonderful things about people and stuff like that. About the West. Remember, for God, from the advent of the movie technologies coming about, where you have Birth of a Nation. It was the first silent movie. I think it was the first wide-release silent movie. They started the romanization of the taming of the West. And for 50, 60 years after that, you had the demonization of the Native Americans. You know, we had, they were always like, the Indians were always attacking for some reason. They were brutal. They were scalping settlers. I mean, just imagine someone moving onto your property and you decided, okay, you made the mistake. You made an agreement with your neighbors. And that was agreement that says, listen, this land was given to all of us, so we'll just hunt on this. Will be common land, and we'll all hunt on it. And there's plenty of wildlife. They're game, like, bison running across here, and we'll just take what we need, and we'll use up what we can. We won't waste any. Well, at one point, and I'll just take the most egregious story. After the founding or the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, there was hunting, trains that were used for hunting to kill bison, where people would ride in the trains and shoot the bison from the train. Don't take my word for it. Do your research. And what they would do is the conductor and the engineer would slow the train down when it came across a herd and get people the chance to shoot like they were at a fucking gallery, a shooting gallery. And the targets were live animals. And they would leave the rotting carcasses there on the plains. So there were upwards of 60 million bison at one time. They got the herd, they got down to as little as 300. 60 million to 300. And if you don't like to hear it, that's your problem. You shouldn't be listening to the show. But that's the truth of the matter. So that's history. And history comes about, and people say, victors write the history. No, historians write the history. And eventually, people do get smarter. The people that survive are smarter. The people that do. We still have a large, with social media, we have a large, we have platforms that spread bad ideas. And there's people with certain agendas. They need to propagate those ideas. And some of those ideas is that it's a good idea not to get the vaccine. And that's the right thing to do. And they call themselves patriotic. Well, it's funny, when people call themselves patriots, it's usually something selfish. Usually what they just said or what they're about to say is a very selfish thing. A patriotic American should have access to an automatic weapon. Blah, 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 blah. I'm patriotic American. I don't need to be vaccinated. Patriotic, fuck you. You're not patriot. You're the opposite of a patriotic American, because a patriotic American does the best for Americans, and you're not doing it. You're selfish. You're propagating lies about the last election. They're still doing it. So get off it. Get smart. I know maybe you got abused. I don't know who abused you. I don't know who abused you, but let go of your hate. Let go of your hate. The water's fine. Come on in and be a patriotic American, because you ain't it. I know that sounds like a convoluted argument, but it's 45 minutes and I did my show. So I'd like to thank you for listening. If you are in Key Largo, please stop at mile marker 102 to the Catch Restaurant and Bar. It's open every day of the week for lunch and dinner. Happy hour from 3:30 to 6:30 with great deals on mixed drinks, draft beer, bottled beer, and happy hour food. So come on in and tell them if you come in and you're a listener of the show, tell me you're a listener of the Keys Bartender. And thank you for listening. Share the show with your friends. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I think if you have any questions, send them to jim@keysbartender.com. Thank you very much and have a great day. Let's play that music. Now I won't talk over it.